Good morning. Is it Levine or Levine?
Levine, sir. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Levine. I'm Judge McBurney, and I need to mute that. There we go. You and I are talking today. I'm here in court. You're going to tell me where you are in a minute. It's fine that you're appearing virtual. I'm just curious where you are. You are challenging the denial of unemployment benefits in your case. And I'm going to hear from you the reasons why you think I ought to reverse the Board of Review that considered the administrative law judge's ruling that you were not entitled to those unemployment benefits. I've had the benefit, to reuse that word, of looking at the record below. That's a transcript of the telephonic hearing you had with the administrative law judge, where there was a representative from the employer there and you were there. So I've seen that ruling, and I just need to impress upon you before I hand this over to you and hear everything and anything you want to share with me, that the scope of my review in appeals like these is limited in two ways. One, I cannot find any new facts. So you may share with me some things that aren't necessarily in the record that was made below, and that's fine, and I'll hear about them, but I cannot rely on that evidence. I'm restricted to the evidence that you presented and the employer presented during that hearing below. So primarily, my review is for errors of law, although I could conclude that the evidence presented below simply wasn't sufficient to support the ruling of the administrative law judge. But for the most part, judges in my position are restricted to looking at, well, sure, there was evidence that you were fired for cause, but that evidence was hearsay, or it shouldn't have come in, or there was a procedural defect such that either you're entitled to a new hearing, or every once in a while, they just got it wrong. And I reverse it and say, give the man his benefits. But I do want to manage your expectations that if you were here with, like, you know what, Judge, I've got the smoking gun, here it is. I got this certificate, best employee ever. How could, like, what are they saying? I did a bad job. If that's not what you shared with the judge below, I will admire the certificate for best employee ever, but it wouldn't be something that I could point to say, here's why, Mr. Levine, we shouldn't have characterized this as a termination for cause, because that's not something you shared with the judge who heard it before. Okay?
Understood.
End of my spiel, and I am happy to hear from you. Why don't you start by telling me where you are now, and if you're working now, what you're doing?
Yes, sir. So I am in Smyrna, in my apartment here in Smyrna. I am working now. I've been with another restaurant. Monday will be a full year that I've now been with them.
Great.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, and that certificate for best employee ever is being framed, actually, so I couldn't show it to you anyway.
Okay. All right. So talk to me about the situation with your previous employer.
Certainly. So as I shared in the previous hearing, the situation was I was hired at this restaurant after being with my previous place for 3 years. This was a brand new place. They were trying to get a Michelin star, was what they were trying to do. It was a very high-end establishment. This was the type of place where the manager. Oh, I'm getting a lot of feedback. I'm sorry.
I can hear you fine, although, Deputy Gordon, would you mind cutting off Ms. Rivers's speaker? Your colleague put it on yesterday because we had a very soft-spoken, that when we were playing that video, I don't know if it's on the back. Is there a switch on the back? Yeah. You did it. Okay.
Okay.
Keep going, Mr. Levine. That hopefully will make it a little better.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So this was the type of place where the manager walked around with a ruler measuring the distance between the plate and the fork. I mean, it was literally that type of restaurant. We were trained using the Forbes steps of service, which was a 70-step service system. Just to suffice to say, this wasn't a Chili's. This wasn't a place where you just slapped the menu down and said, you know, I'll be right back with your.
Not that there's anything wrong with Chili's, but that wasn't the environment.
That is correct. So,
okay.
I was part of a bar staff that was employed 6 bar staff members. Each member of that bar staff was meant to work every night of the week that we were open, which was 5 nights a week. There was 4 bartenders and 2 barbacks. And I'm gonna, I assume you're familiar with the restaurant business, or I don't have to explain a lot of these terms, or like.
Well, you should explain bar back,
Okay,
because
so-
I'm familiar as a customer of restaurants, more along the lines of Chili's than some Michelin-starred restaurant. So I know what a bar is. I know what they serve at a bar.
Right.
But I don't know what a bar back is.
So a bar back is a support employee. Their responsibility is to assist the bartender in doing things like washing glassware, getting ice, replacing liquor bottles that have been emptied, like things of that, so the bartender can focus on servicing the guest. So that's what.
Were you a bar back or a tender?
No, I was a bartender, sir.
Okay.
There was 4 bartenders and 2 barbacks was part of the service team that was there.
All at the same time? Like there are
Yes, sir.
4 bartenders. How this bar is like 5 miles long?
No, so what I was about to explain to you. So there was 4 separate stations that the bartenders were responsible for.
Okay.
The bar consisted of 7 bar seats. 1 bartender was responsible for those 7 bar seats where guests could have a full service dinner. They were also responsible for serving guests, anybody that walked up to the bar, they could order drinks, that kind of thing. The end section of the bar was the service bar. That was responsible for making drinks for the guests in the restaurant. So when you get any tables that ordered drinks, the servers would ring those in and the ticket would print up, and 1 bartender was responsible for that. There was 120 seats in the restaurant. So the night in question, we were fully committed, 120 guests. There was a lounge area. That lounge area consisted of 3 two-top cocktail tables, as well as 2 couches with 6 seats each, so 18 seats total in the lounge area. That lounge area, up to that point, was able to order drinks. They were able to order appetizers, and they were able to order desserts. So we had 1 bartender that was focused on that. That was their responsibility. And finally, the 4th bartender, we had a rolling martini cart, which was literally a portable bar that went from table to table, making drinks at the table for the guests. It was part of the elevated service. So one bartender was responsible for that. So as far as the 2 barbacks were concerned, one was responsible for keeping the main bar stocked, so anything that happened at the main bar. The second barback was responsible for the martini cart, because that had ice and garnishes and glassware and all that kind of stuff. So that
was the martini cart literally just martini? Like if I wanted a scotch and soda, like, sorry, this is a martini cart. It's not a scotch and soda cart.
That is correct. So it did have a limited selection of what could be made from the cart, and anything else would have to be rung in and go through the main service bar.
Okay.
So that was the full bar staff, and that's exactly how it was designed to operate. On the night in question, there was only 2 of us. 4 other members, two of the other bartenders and 2 of the barbacks were not present. They didn't show up for work, or for whatever reason. That was beyond my control. So obviously we were trying to make do with what we could do, as far as operate the main bar, operate the service bar, operate the martini cart, service the guests in the lounge area, between myself and another bartender. Like I said, up to that point, we were only doing drinks and appetizers in the lounge area. But because we were so busy that night, the managers had made a decision to start serving full meals in that area. This was the point in contention, which led to all of this, which was, I explained to the manager that we didn't have the capacity to do it. We were just, we were so overloaded with everything else that was going on. We couldn't do it. We were out of capacity. They replied that they would help. And I said, the help that we need is if you want to take tables, if you want to do this, that's the help that we need. Like, it's just, it's not an ability issue. It's a manpower issue.
Right. It's capacity.
It's capacity. And I even suggested take some servers off the floor, give 1 server each, to each cocktail table. They've got a full complement of servers. Everybody was there. They have what they call back waiters, which are assistants for the servers. So they have plenty of staff to do that.
Yeah.
That was also not an acceptable solution to them. So, and this was in the middle of the dinner rush. So obviously it's very busy. It's a very high tension type time. Um, did I say it in a way that probably was the most diplomatic way to say it? Probably not. I mean, I didn't curse and I didn't yell, but I was,
Yeah.
obviously I didn't use 10 words when 5 words will do.
Yep.
Um, and that was the situation. And so we continued throughout the rest of the night. I continued to do my job for the rest of the night. We got through the night as best as we could. The end of the night, the manager had a conversation with me about just my behavior, I shouldn't have told them to take the tables. Regardless, my attitude, however they wanted to describe it. An interesting little side note to that, the managers did end up taking the tables and had to comp hundreds of dollars worth of food because even they couldn't do it.
Keep up, right?
Yeah, right. And that was it. And that was the long and short of it is, outside of that conversation, I had never been written up. I had never been disciplined in any way. I'd never been late. I'd never missed a shift. This wasn't a situation where I was a problem employee and this was the final straw. It was just a matter of there was a disagreement in the middle of this time about what could be done from a capacity standpoint. And I guess they didn't feel that my answer was acceptable to what I thought could happen. I just kind of felt in that situation with the level of service that we were supposed to be providing, and what they were asking me to do. They tied my hands behind my back and they asked me to clap, and when I couldn't, they let me go.
Right.
So, that's really the bottom line, for the whole thing.
How long were you out of employment? How many months are we talking about? If
So
we're able to rewind and say, all right, so you're terminated, you say without cause, so you're eligible. Now I know you were working, good new job, been there for a year. So it sounds like you've been able to cover everything you're supposed to cover with your hands tied behind your back. So what was the window of unemployment?
So they originally said that they were going to do a 30-day review. That was their initial. They took me off the schedule while they were doing this 30-day review, so they wouldn't let me work. So that I believe it was March 14th was the day that I was taken off the schedule of 2024.
Yep.
On 30 days after that, I was informed via phone call from the HR department that they were terminating my employee, and I was no longer an employee of the hotel. So that was March 14th, 30 days, about mid-April.
Yep.
From that time until July of that year, I was unemployed, looking for a new position.
Got it. So July was the happy time when you found this new job.
Yes, sir. It was very, very, very happy.
Good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. This has nothing to do with any ruling I could make, but what's your theory behind, because of one microaggression on your part, talking to the manager in a way maybe the manager didn't want, on a busy night when clearly everyone was overtaxed because they're comping tables hundreds of dollars in food, to say now we're taking you off the schedule. Clearly they need people, they need good people, and things have been going well. It doesn't add up. It doesn't strike me as a rational business decision. Not that the restaurant business is rational, and when we're getting into the sphere of Michelin, it's more art than business, and I get all that, and that's why I tend not to eat there, plus all the zeros on the end of the bill. But it doesn't click. So as you reflect back on it, what would you say was behind it if it wasn't? Because of course there's the other side to the story where at your hearing there've been issues with Levine before, blah blah blah. But setting that aside, if one were to adopt your version of events, why do that?
So I'll say this. I was part of the original hiring team when the establishment opened. Out of, I think it was more than 60 some odd individuals hired for front of staff, only 3 remain in after a year. The GM was fired not shortly after I was. The food and beverage director, who was in charge of the entire property, was let go 8 months into it. This place was woefully mismanaged.
Okay.
It really was just a mismanagement situation. I mean, the sommelier left. We had a full-time sommelier. She is gone. I mean, there's really nobody left because they saw that this place was just not running the way.
It sounds pretty toxic.
It
That's
was.
not the way to get your star. If you're
Right.
running everyone off.
That's exactly correct. So they do have a
Okay.
whole new staff there basically because they had to replace just about everybody.
Mm.
I, obviously I'm biased because I'm on my side, but I don't, this wasn't, the place was running like clockwork and John Levine just didn't fit into it.
Right, right.
You know,
The one oddball. No, it
right.
sounds like they were hemorrhaging good talent. Any of the castaways land with you wherever you are now?
No, but I still have kept up with some of them, and they have landed other places that they're much happier with and are still there, a
Good,
year later, which is good. So,
good.
we all, as a team, we were all very, close and tight and worked,
Mhm.
very hard together. It was just overall from a program standpoint, it really just didn't work.
Yep. Okay. Anything else you want to share with me?
I just jotted down some notes. I think I pretty much covered everything in it, which was everything that I had covered in the previous, um, hearing. So,
Sure.
but I think that that's pretty much, the context of the whole situation.
How would you describe the role or the title of the person that the employer sent to your hearing? I've got the transcript, but I've learned that sometimes the way that gets conveyed is like, that's the head of HR. And the reality is like, nah, that was just like the chef or the whatever. Who was not the name, because I have that, but what was the role that the person had who was providing information for the administrative law
Sure.
judge on behalf of the employer?
So it was a member of the HR department. They were not the head of HR.
Mm.
They had said that they were, I believe, a week into the job because they had a bunch of people that they had let go in the HR department or defections from. Right. This whole thing was a I don't want to use the term, it's vulgar, but
Right, I hear
an
you.
S show is what it was.
Yes, yeah.
So this person was a week into their job in the HR department who they had sent because I had asked questions about their knowledge of the situation, and they really said the only thing that they had to go on was the file. They were not there, and they were not even a member of the organization when this whole thing took place.
Okay, that's helpful. All right, Mr. Levine, I will take all this under advisement. I shared with you at the outset the ways in which my hands are tied in terms of appellate review, but I don't say that to give you no hope, just to manage your expectations.
Certainly.
But like we discussed, you did not present the Employee of the Year certificate because it's still being framed. You stuck with, look, here's what happened. Here's what I told the administrative law judge, and this doesn't seem to be a termination that was based for cause, or at least not consistent with policy, where there ought to be a series of interventions and graduated sanctions and everything. So I will look at what you shared and what the HR rep was able to share with the judge and take it from there.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
You bet. Have a safe 4th of July.
You as well. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.